Preserving genetic diversity. Let's have a look a little bit more in deep then what's behind this preserving genetic diversity. According to the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, it was agreed upon in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 1992. Natural diversity must be studied, monitored, protected, and this includes also the genetic diversity. Native plants and breeds have tastes, nutrient contents, and other properties that have not been used in breeding operations. So we have been breeding very narrowly on animals. At some point, there was a rumor that the industrial hens, for example, all are bred out from 5 different male lines. I have not seen any research on this, that it actually was like that, but many times, yes, for example, also in our native populations, then the amount of males have been pretty narrow from where the preservation work have been started, not to talk about the breeded industrial breeds. And this actually goes the same also for plants. Many of our modern sorts, they are breeded actually from one plant or 2 different plants. It means from 2 different straws only. In both cultivated plants and domestic animals, the traditional characteristics have been eradicated. What is the difference between conservation and breeding? So traditional breeding is done to get as much economic benefit as possible from the animal or the plant. Many different traits has been used in breeding. For example, we have breeding on size, we want bigger ones. Or we have been breeding on, we want those who are growing very fast. We want, for example, only white colored. Or we want some with a certain mark, for example, in Hereford has been breeded on animals with a white head and a colored body. Or we want such that has as much offspring as possible. The Eastern Finnish sheep has a lot of offsprings and are widely used in the world for improving sheep fertility. Single-colored sheep have been bred in Finland and Iceland because it meets the industry's demand for single-colored wool, which again is connected with the dyeing industry. We want different colors. And that's why we need the white one, because the white wool we can color into different colors. In order to achieve the breeding goal, stocking animals of different colors was not recommended in Finland. So interbreeding with different colored sheep results in multicolored sheep, as you can see here to the right. White is the dominant color and brown, for example, is a recessive characteristic in sheep. So you tend to get less and less of the brown colored animals and then more of the white ones. Why do we not see spotted sheep at old photos? You can see at this old photo here, there are either white or black. The photo is from the beginning of the 20th century, and this photo is from Estonia. So making beautiful handicrafts required thread of different colors, and it was easier to enter the different colors separately than to sort the wool of multicolored sheep. So dark sheep were preferred since ancient times because dark work clothes was mostly needed. The number of white sheep increased with when more yarns were dyed. So dyeing was a time-consuming task. So when we look at the old photos, you can see that the women have been strictly keeping these different animals separated. So when they are mating them, they are most likely having two mating groups. One where they have a ram, use a black ram, and another group where they use then a white ram, in order to have less work afterwards in sorting the wool. But of course, there are always these preferences. So even during these thousands of years, people have had their preferences. Here you can see a small Swedish minority on Ruhnu Island, an Estonian island where they used to live, these Swedish-speaking people, as a minority. And their sheep were white with very fine wool. And that they preferred, and they had these white big scarves. You can see the women are bearing, and this scarf it is like dominant part in their cultural heritage. And this is then of course reflected then into the sheep, that you have mostly this white and very fine wool sheep type behind that. So there was this kind of traditional demand, but behind this white one there is one more reason, that these people were seal hunters. And seal hunter, from the seal they got fat and meat and skin, and it was why they managed to live on these small islands out in the Baltic Sea. So a successful sealing expedition required that the men were dressed in white clothes. So they had white hats and white other clothes, and they were also hunting on the ice in the snow winter time. Even this photo is now here taking not in the winter, and this is then actually reflected in the sheep herd. So the sheep herd was white. Why is not breeding the same as preservation? Then why can't we then just breed them in such a way that we get a bigger economic benefit from these native animals? The goal of preserving animals is to preserve them so that they look the same as they looked when the conservation work started. And if you start to breed in order to get economic benefit, because the market is requiring different products in different times, so if you actually change them to according to the trends of the century that you are living in, then you will lose some characteristics that are not being popular at that time. So the native breeds are preserved as a living cultural tradition as they have been in the past, and based on the fodder that the local land can give them. And our goal is that both internal and external characteristics remain the same. The more we select, the fewer animals and plants will have offsprings, and there will then occur a rapid decrease in genetic diversity in the population. Is it possible to preserve, to keep as they used to be kept? So is it possible to freeze the characteristics of a population? No, that's not possible. Each generation changes its own genetic characteristics. The size of the changes is tied to the size of the population. So it can be said that fewer individuals, the greater genetic influence and change. We can slow down the change if we use as many individuals as possible in the conservation work. So we don't work with selections. We just use as many of the males as possible in the population if we talk about breeds. It is important to monitor what is happening in the population all the time. And if you have to make a choice, you should choose according to traditional usage. A larger selection can only be made when the population is large enough, so when the population is not longer endangered. So when you enter into keeping native plants or native breeds, you should be well aware of what is the situation, for example, of that native breed. And you should be involved in the process of keeping or preserving this native breed and keeping contact with other people also keeping the same breed in order to have a check on how it's going and in what direction it is going. And that, of course, then gives why there have been established these non-government organizations for native breeds. It is as a forum for communicating between the animal owners of these native breeds.